Hi again, everyone. We are continuing to work with poetry this week, and I have another playlist for you to work on. While the other task for this week is optional, this assignment is required. This is a poetry analysis playlist that will build on your work from last week with the Intro to Poetry playlist and the Poetic Terms worksheet. The directions for the playlist say, please pick 3 of the following poems linked below and then fill out the chart. For the summary, please use complete sentences. For the language box, please write down at least one example, identify what the advice is, and explain it. An example has been done for you in the first row that's highlighted in yellow. You should aim to include about the same amount of information that you see in the example. The point of this playlist is to set you up for the common task that you'll be asked to start next week. For that common task, you'll analyze how the structure of the poem contributes to its language and meaning or theme. The more effort you put in here, the easier the writing task will be later. So, what we have here are 5 different columns. In the first column, you'll see the name and an author of a poem with a link to the text. And the second column gives you a description of the poem with a little info about the author and his or her focus in their poetry. The third column is blank for you, and you need to provide a 2 to 3 sentence summary of the poem. Summarize what the poem is about and what you think the author wants you to understand. The fourth column is also blank, and here you'll write a 1-sentence theme statement for the poem. Remember our work with theme related to Raisin in the Sun. Ultimately, a theme is not just one word. It needs to be a complete sentence and a thought that shows how the poem can be applied to the world around you. Finally, in the fifth column, you'll break down the language the author uses in the poem. This column is perhaps the most important, at least in that it will be the foundation for the common task that you'll write. Really make sure that you think hard about what to write here. Refer to the Poetic Terms worksheet to help you with this if you get stuck in what to write. You'll need to identify a line from the poem, identify a technique or a poetic term that is used in that line, and write an explanation of how that technique and line affect your understanding of the poem. Why do you think the author chose to use that technique and line? What did they want the audience to understand about the poem and their ideas? Let's look at the example together. In the first column, you'll see a link where you can read the poem. And then here you see a little bit of background information about Robert Frost and the types of poems he writes. Pause the video here so that you can read the poem before we talk about it together. Welcome back. Now, in this column, you'll see a brief summary of the poem. Notice how it's about 3 sentences long. After having read the poem, you can see how this summary walks us through what the poem is about. Writing a good summary here will show us that you understand the poem before analyzing it. Now we get to theme. Remember, a theme is a full sentence about what the author wants the reader to understand about the topic. A theme is not just one word. Now pause and review the notes, and then we'll move forward. The reader has identified that the theme of the poem is that sometimes one must make a choice without knowing if it will be best and live with the consequences. Pay attention to how this theme connects to the summary, but adds analysis. Because the poem talks about different paths, the theme digs deeper to show that choosing a path in life isn't always easy, and it can be hard to know if it was the best decision. But the important thing is to accept what happens and keep moving forward. Finally, we get to the last column. This is where the optional poetic terms assignment will be really helpful. This column asks you to choose a quote, just one or two lines, that has an identifiable poetic device that you think is important for the meaning of the poem. This example uses the line, "Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both," and says that this is a symbol. It's important to choose a line that seems extra important. This one connects directly to the theme statement. Now, the most important part is to thoroughly analyze why this poetic technique is important for our poem. Our example's explanation is this: the roads symbolize decisions in life that someone has to make. The author wants the reader to understand that it can be hard to choose the right path, and sometimes the best thing to do is not the most popular. The author uses a symbol here so that the reader can visualize the scene and understand his message more personally than if he just says it directly. This explains what the symbol is, what the author wants the reader to understand from the reading, and why the author might have used a symbol. Make sure your explanation includes just as much information. Remember, the more thought and detail you put into this part, the easier the common task will be. As you work on this assignment, keep this example in mind and refer to it as often as you need to. Also, it might help to watch this video over again if you need reminders on how to go through these columns or in case you forget. Again, you're to choose 3 of the following poems. Make sure you complete all columns for all 3 poems. Keep in mind, you may also choose selections from the Poet X if that's something you're just interested in doing. This assignment is worth 15 formative points. If you have any questions at all, please attend the class Zoom meeting or send me an email.